Welcome to this quiet corner of the universe. The day has already loosened its hold, and the night or the hush of morning is here to carry what remains away. Let the breath move slower, let the noise drift outward, and let the center of the body grow calm as if wrapped in silence. Imagine a horizon washed in silver, a pale arc of light resting above a world asleep. The air is still listening. Beyond, starlight scatters like dust adrift, and the dark itself seems to rise and fall, breathing in long, patient turns. This is the real story of the moon's hidden face. It is not a tale told quickly, but a slow unfolding light and shadow woven with silence, memory, and time. A story that has circled the earth for ages, moving without haste, moving without end. And what if the face so familiar, the one always turned toward us, is only half the truth? What if the other half, veiled in its endless turning, has been keeping its own quiet rhythm, a memory never shared? Wherever this finds you, in a room hushed by night, or beneath the soft murmur of rain, the same sky rests above. And here under that sky, this moment is shared. So let the thoughts grow slower, let the eyes grow heavier, let the breath move like the tide, as together we drift into the real story of the moon's hidden face, a journey calm, certain, and unhurried. And so, the flow of time drifts onward, carrying thought into the quiet of the night, where the presence of the moon begins to unfold like a veil of silver across the darkness, never abrupt, never loud, only a continuation of what has always been. The moon spreads its pale light across the sleeping world, resting softly on rooftops, on wide fields, on the still surface of rivers and lakes. A light that is neither sharp nor burning, but subdued and delicate, like the glow of a lantern wrapped in mist. A glow that invites the eyes to soften and the mind to rest, because this light is never overbearing, never urgent, but always gentle in its touch. The beams drift downward as if they were fine threads of silk woven into the fabric of the night, and everything beneath them seems to breathe in unison, slower and calmer, as though drawn into a rhythm older than words. The fields stretch under the dim glow, like oceans of silver grain. The trees stand hushed as if listening, and the waters hold the reflection as a second sky laid flat upon the earth. In this silence, the moonlight becomes a lullaby, not sung, but felt, a lullaby that flows without beginning or end. Yet the glow that appears so natural is not the moon's own, for the moon is a mirror, and its face gathers light from elsewhere, from the distant sun, carrying it across the emptiness of space and sending it back to earth in softened form. Reflection becomes its language, a translation of brilliance into tenderness, a moderation of fire into cool radiance, like water calming the flame into steam. In this gentle exchange, the moon does not shine, but lends, does not create, but shares. And through this act, it becomes more intimate, more human-like, as if it were a companion carrying a lantern for the earth, choosing to hold the brightness back and only offering what the night can cradle. The science of reflection becomes a story of quiet generosity, where photons, tiny messengers of light, arrive at the lunar surface only to be sent outward again, softened in their journey, like travelers who set down their burdens before stepping into a sanctuary. This very reflection creates the sensation that the moon has never fully revealed itself, that it always carries a hidden quality, a truth beneath the glow that escapes notice. For light is borrowed, not born, and the surface remains a mask of silver, concealing the depth of stone dust and silence. The moon shows only what it receives, never what it is, and thus the glow across the rooftops, the fields, and the waters is both intimate and distant, at once close enough to illuminate the grass underfoot, but distant enough to remain untouchable. There is a veil between what is seen and what exists, and this veil makes the moon mysterious, a presence that is always here and yet never entirely known, a companion whose gaze is felt, but whose thoughts remain unspoken. It is this distance, this gentle concealment, that allows the imagination to wander, for behind every beam of light lies a silence that refuses to be fully explained. The night accepts this as it accepts everything, and continues in its still rhythm, holding the glow, as a mother holds the breath of a sleeping child, light rocking across the surface of the earth with infinite patience. The cycle is unbroken. The sun sends its brilliance. The moon gathers, it reshapes it, and the earth receives it in calmness, like a circle of trust that does not end. Nothing is rushed, nothing is forced. For this is not the blaze of day, but the sigh of night, and in that sigh the world finds the courage to close its eyes. The grass bends under the faint gleam, the shadows spread, but never sharpen, and every corner of the earth touched by moonlight becomes softer, less rigid, as though the stones themselves are breathing out their fatigue. Even silence becomes denser, more layered, because silence beneath the moon is not emptiness, but fullness, a fullness of stillness that holds. And through all of this, the sense remains that the moon has never shown everything, that it always withholds a part of itself behind the mirror, that the glow on the water, the silver on the leaves, the shimmer on the clouds are only fragments of a hidden presence. What reaches the earth is always partial, always incomplete, and this incompleteness is what gives the moon its enchantment. To gaze upon it is to know both closeness and distance, both gift and secrecy, as though the companion in the sky smiles with half a face while concealing the rest. Science may call it reflection, a matter of surface and light, but the heart interprets it as modesty, as reticence, as a calm refusal to overwhelm. The moon remains veiled, and in that veil lies its beauty. Thus, the night continues, and the earth breathes, and under the silver wash of the moon, the world finds rest. The rooftops shimmer faintly, the fields glow in silence, the waters lie quiet under their twin sky, and the breath of everything slows to meet the rhythm of borrowed light. The moon watches without speaking, shares without claiming, gives without revealing, and through this quiet gesture, the night becomes whole. And as the earth turns beneath that veil of silver, the thought drifts gently that the moon has never shown its true face, and perhaps it never will. But in that secrecy lies the gentleness that cradles the night, and from the quiet of the silver light, thought drifts naturally toward the rhythm that binds the moon, and the earth for nothing begins sharply here, and nothing ends, but one movement blends into another, like ripples folding upon water. The moon moves around the earth in a path that seems simple, yet within that motion there lies a secret symmetry, for as it completes its journey around its companion, it turns upon itself in a way that is measured and patient, never hurried, never uneven, but aligned as though following a hidden score. This synchronous rotation, as science names it, is not felt as a technical term, but as a quiet choreography, a dance where one partner circles while bowing in perfect time, never breaking rhythm. The earth sees this dance not in motion, but in stillness, for the same side of the moon is always turned toward it, and the face becomes familiar while the other remains veiled, kept behind the turning. It is as though the moon holds a mask of stone and light offering only the front of its expression while keeping the other side in reserve. In this way, science and silence meet, and what might be called orbital mechanics becomes instead the poetry of constant companionship. This unchanging presentation feels at once like chance and like destiny, for what alignment of forces has created a movement so exact that it hides as much as it reveals. The idea of tidal locking is a phrase often used, yet the phrase softens when imagined as a tide that has found balance, a tide that no longer surges but settles, folding itself into stillness. The moon is locked, but the word locked here does not bind like chains. It rests more like the settling of a child into the cradle of its parents' arms, a place where motion finds comfort, where the same angle is always kept, not through restraint, but through harmony. In this harmony, one hemisphere of the moon becomes the eternal companion of Earth, while the other hemisphere is the eternal wanderer, circling, but never seen, like a dancer who turns only one side of the face toward the audience, forever holding the rest in shadow. And so, the moon is both constant and mysterious, both present and hidden, for every glance upward is answered by the same features, the same pattern of light and darkness etched across its surface, while the far side remains a memory unshared, a page unread. This balance between the known and the unknown creates a rhythm that does not need to be resolved, for the purpose of the dance is not to reveal everything, but to move endlessly, without interruption, without conclusion. One can imagine the moon gliding in its orbit as though upon a great circle of water, while at the same time spinning upon itself like a slow wheel, so perfectly timed that the wheel and the path complete their turns together. And because of this perfection, the earth never sees the wheel move, only the steady face that watches night after night, season after season, like an old companion sitting quietly beside the fire, always present, always turned the same way. This synchronous dance is not a performance with applause, not an act that seeks attention, but more like a heartbeat, unnoticed, yet essential, steady, and soft. Each rotation of the moon upon itself is folded into its orbit around the earth, each orbit around the earth folded into the greater turning of both around the sun. And so, the layers of motion build into a cosmic rhythm. Yet at the scale of human thought, what is felt is only stillness, only the comfort of the familiar face in the sky rising and setting, following the slow wheel of time. The unseen side remains unseen, but its very absence becomes part of the music, the rest between notes that allows the melody to breathe. In silence, the hidden half adds depth to the visible, reminding the mind that there is always more than can be held by sight, always another layer just beyond reach. And if the thought drifts further, it may seem that this arrangement is not accidental, but a quiet destiny chosen by the unfolding of ages. For chance could have left the moon turning freely, showing every side in turn, yet instead it chose to rest in this symmetry, this calm pact With the earth, this balance where one face is given and the other withheld, destiny or chance, it makes little difference in the hush of night, for what matters is the effect, a constancy that cradles the mind, a rhythm so smooth it lulls thought itself into slower patterns. The dance continues, unbroken, unhurried, and the earth continues to gaze upon the same features, recognizing them as one recognizes the lines of a familiar hand, never changing, never estranged. Thus the moon in its synchronous dance becomes more than stone and orbit. It becomes an emblem of companionship, of repetition that soothes rather than tires, of cycles that calm rather than constrain. The visible half glows, the hidden half waits, and the earth turning beneath accepts both the gift and the secret. Together, they move in circles upon circles, light and shadow, interwoven science and silence made one, and in that quiet, the breath of the listener slows, the mind drifts, and the heart rests in the knowledge that some dances are not meant to end, but only to continue softly without pause. And from that steady dance in the sky, thought falls naturally toward the waters below, as if the gaze of the moon leans down and leaves its mark upon the oceans. Nothing changes suddenly here, for the world continues to move with the same quiet rhythm, and the sea follows the pull in a motion that is as ancient as night itself. The tides rise, and the tides fall, carried by the gravity of the moon. Yet what is felt is not a law, but a breath, as though the earth itself is inhaling and exhaling in time with the silver companion above. Each swell of the ocean is a slow intake, each retreat a gentle release, and together they create the sense of a planet breathing vast and unhurried, never ceasing but never hurried. The science of attraction becomes softened, becomes something like a lullaby, sung not with words, but with water. To stand by the shore is to feel the moon's hand moving invisibly, drawing the sea closer, then letting it fall away, always returning, always repeating. This rhythm carries across every shore and every ocean, binding the continents in a single cycle, a quiet unison that no human voice could orchestrate yet, which resounds more deeply than music. The water does not resist, but follows willingly, as though it has known all along that its purpose is to move with the moon. In the pull and the release, the ocean reflects not only light, but time itself, for tides are the measure of patience, never rushing, never breaking the order that has been written into them since the beginning. A beach at night becomes not just sand and water, but a mirror of the greater dance, a place where cosmic motion touches the skin of the earth in something that feels like touch, but softer, like a memory being recalled. And if the thought lingers there, it becomes clear that the entire planet moves to this hidden breath, not only the seas, but the air and the lives within it, all attuned, however faintly, to the same rhythm. Fish and birds, shores and rivers, even the smallest grains of sand beneath the waves shift in harmony, carried on a tide that does not belong to them alone, but to the balance between earth and moon. The planet is not separate from its satellite, but joined in a rhythm that extends beyond words, a pulse so steady that it passes unnoticed by those who do not pause to listen. Yet in the pause, in the silence, the pulse is unmistakable, and it lulls thought into the same gentle repetition. It is as if the whole world is contained within a cradle, rocked not by hands, but by gravity itself, which here does not bind, but soothes a gravity that is not heavy, but tender. The pull of the moon becomes the hand that steadies the earth, keeping the oceans from stillness, keeping them alive, with a motion that never falters. And just as the breath of a sleeper rises and falls without effort, so too the tides lift and release their rhythm unbroken, even when no one watches, even when no one listens. The planet itself seems to sleep, and in its sleep, it breathes exhaling through waves, inhaling through silence, all in time with the distant light. To imagine the earth without this rhythm is to imagine a silence too deep, a stillness without comfort. For the rise and fall of the sea is not noise, but reassurance, the whisper of the cosmos made tangible. The moon becomes the storyteller, and the water the listener, repeating each phrase with a nod, with a sigh, with a bow. The story has no beginning and no end, only the repetition of soundless words told through motion and return. And in that repetition, the mind itself finds peace. For to listen to the tide is to hear not only the sea, but the quiet background of existence, the universe breathing itself into being and back again. Thus, the moon does more than shine. It guides it, rocks it, holds the waters as though they were a child, restless but calmed by the presence of a parent. The earth becomes that child, and the tide its lullaby, one that never ceases, one that continues through every night, through every morning. And in this lullaby, the listener too may find themselves drifting as the waves drift, carried by a rhythm that promises no climax, no ending, only continuation. The water does not hurry, the moon does not demand, and the cycle does not falter. It only flows softly, inevitably, endlessly. And in this flowing, the universe itself seems to be rocking, as though it too has chosen to rest. The stars remain scattered, the moon remains above, and the earth continues to breathe through its oceans, its breath deep and measured like the sigh of a sleeper who has surrendered to rest. Nothing is forced, nothing is strained. Everything is simply moving quietly in the way it has always moved. And so the tides remind the mind of something beyond itself, a stillness that includes motion, a silence that includes sound, a rest that includes the entire world. The sea breathes with the moon, the planet breathes with the sea, and the universe breathes with the planet. It is one rhythm, endless and gentle, carrying all things as though in a cradle, as though in a song too soft for words, but strong enough to hold everything within it. It is said that every story drifts like a ripple, following after the quiet movement of the one before it. And so, as the moon's rhythm carries the oceans and lights the night, there comes another whisper, older than the tides, softer than the glow itself. In the traditions of ancient China, a tale has always hovered in the stillness of the sky. It is the story of Chang'e the moon, maiden who lives forever on the silver sphere, holding close the gentle jade rabbit. Their presence is imagined not as loud proclamation, but as a shadow folded into the light, as if the moon itself wished to veil its face with poetry. The image drifts like a thin veil of mist, easy to overlook, yet impossible to forget once it has brushed across the heart. The moon, so often seen as a body of rock, becomes under this telling something more tender. A home, a sanctuary, a place where loneliness and eternity are bound in one. Chang'e, with her quiet grace, is said to dwell there, not in sorrow, but in a still endurance, while the rabbit, moves softly at her side, preparing elixirs of life or grinding herbs beneath the endless glow. Together, they turn the silent surface into a chamber of timeless companionship. The tale does not argue with reason, nor does it resist the truth of reflection. It simply lays itself gently upon the moon like dew on stone. The jade rabbit, in its simplicity, offers another layer to the moon's light. In many nights of watching, people have looked up and thought they saw not scars of craters, but the outline of a rabbit crouched in still devotion. The shapes of brightness and shadow across the lunar face were read not as geology, but as a living figure always awake in the silver quiet. This gentle imagination lingers in the same way the moon lingers in the sky, faithful, unhurried, and serene. One could say the legend is nothing more than an echo of human longing projected into the night. Yet even science, when spoken, slowly has its own kind of legend. The moon reflects light because it has no radiance of its own, and that light falls in patterns across its surface. Craters scatter the glow in ways that form shadows and contours, giving rise to pictures in the minds of those who watch from far below. Science explains, myth softens. Both flow together like two notes of the same quiet song. The presence of Chang'e and the jade rabbit does not change the pull of gravity or the sway of tides. And yet when one closes the eyes and lets the breath move slowly, the story changes the way the moon is felt. It no longer hangs as only a stone, but as a lantern holding memory, as if it is keeping safe the dreams of all who look upon it. The story itself becomes a tide not of water, but of thought rising and falling gently within the listener. There are nights when the moon seems too far cold and unreachable, a sphere of silence with no welcome. Yet when the legend is remembered, that distance closes. It feels as though the moon is not entirely foreign, but quietly familiar, as if it carries within its silver surface the company of figures who keep it warm. Chang'e veiled in light, and the rabbit at her side give a softness to what might otherwise be hard. The moon becomes a storybook left open in the sky. Legends like these act not as explanations, but as companions. They walk alongside the long corridors of science, adding warmth where facts alone can be cool. They remind the mind that the night sky is not only a place to measure, but also a place to dream. Each crater remains what it is. Each shadow remains true to the sun's angle, but layered above them drifts the softer fabric of tale and image. The two are not at war. They breathe together like two sides of the same silent coin. And so, in listening, one is invited not to choose between myth and reflection, but to let both exist. The moon shines, though it shines only with borrowed light. The legend lives, though it floats without proof. Together, they weave an atmosphere where thought can rest, a place where the listener may drift as if on a slow current, carried neither forward nor backward, but simply within. Chang'e continues her eternal presence in the imagination, and the jade rabbit continues its endless task. Neither ages, neither fades. They remain as steady as the phases of the moon, as reliable as the return of light after shadow. The story does not call for belief. It asks only to be remembered, to hover like starlight that touches the edge of vision before sleep. And so, the legend lingers quiet and weightless, like a speck of dust caught in the glow of silver. It adds nothing to the stone of the moon, and yet it changes everything in how the moon is felt. It is this whisper of imagination, this echo of tenderness, that makes the lunar light not only seen, but also known. The story rests there, still, waiting, like the moon itself. As the old tale settles, like mist upon the silver light, another thought drifts quietly forward, as if the story itself wishes to lean deeper into the shadows. The moon, circling in its calm orbit, has always shown only one face. The other remains hidden, turned away silent. This is not deception, but a rhythm of motion, a dance of synchrony that leaves half revealed and half concealed. The light we know, the familiar surface, is like a smile always turned toward earth, while the far side waits in secrecy, veiled by distance and time. And so, the question comes gently, like a whisper moving through the dark. What rests in the face we never see? Is it simply more stone, more craters, more silence? Or is it something the imagination wishes to keep alive? A companion's secret never spoken. The hidden half becomes not absence, but presence, a reminder that even in what is closest, there are still places that remain beyond sight. The moon, in this way, is like a quiet friend, always there, always near, yet never fully known. A companion with a mask that has never been lifted, carrying mystery as softly as it carries light. The question of the unseen face lingers for a moment, like a soft echo held in the still air, and then, almost without effort, the thought moves toward another truth, quiet and steady, waiting behind the veil of mystery. The far side of the moon is often called the dark side, as if it were wrapped forever in shadow. Yet the name is only a fragment, a reflection of what cannot be seen from Earth. In reality, sunlight touches every part of the lunar surface, though not at the same time. The far side breathes in the radiance, just as the near side does, bathed in long arcs of day and shadow, turning slowly, endlessly under the watch of the sun. It is not hidden from light only from the eyes of those who gaze from below. This truth, so simple, feels like a soft unveiling. It is as if the moon leans closer and whispers, "I am not what you thought. My silence is not darkness, only distance." The far side holds light in its own rhythm, unseen but steady, like the pulse of a heart heard only by the one who carries it. And in this way, the mystery deepens, not in fear, but in tenderness. The language of orbits and rotation might explain why this happens, why the same face always greets the earth, while the other remains concealed. Yet beyond the explanation lies a gentler perception, one that soothes instead of instructs. The moon, moving with Earth in quiet synchrony, keeps a secret half turned away, not because it rejects light, but because its dance keeps it so. This is not deception, it is choreography. It is the stillness of two companions moving together in a pattern older than memory. One can imagine that while the familiar side glows with reflected sunlight, the far side glows too, though no eyes on earth can trace it directly. It becomes a lantern burning out of reach, a radiance that is known to exist, but never seen without leaving home. Like a friend who writes letters, never sent, its light is both present and absent at once, and the knowledge of it, gentle and undeniable, turns the silence of the far side into something more profound. In that awareness, the name dark side softens and dissolves. It is not a region of endless night, but of endless patience. It waits for the sun to reach it, and when the rays arrive, the surface brightens, scattering light into space unseen by the eyes below. The thought itself feels like a secret kindness that what is hidden is not lost, that what is unseen is not without warmth. The far side, though, silent shares in the same cycles as its near twin breathing, with the same slow rhythm of light and shadow. Perhaps this is why the idea is so soothing. To know that even what is hidden carries light is to be reminded that absence is never absolute. The far side becomes a metaphor as much as a reality, the reminder that unseen places are not empty, but alive in their own quiet way. The moon, holding its mask, allows Earth to see only half, yet it gives both halves to the sun. Nothing is left untouched. Nothing is ever truly in darkness. And in that thought, the stillness deepens. It is easy to picture the unseen side, wrapped in long sunrises and long sunsets, each moment stretching far beyond the pace of earthly days. Light lingers there, drawing shadows across mountains and craters, then withdrawing with equal patience. The rhythm is slow, like a breath that fills and empties, over and over a breath that carries no urgency, only constancy. So the far side, while hidden, is never abandoned. It belongs to the same cycle, the same turning, the same celestial song. The idea rests upon the mind like a blanket of silver dust, gentle and unhurried. Knowing this changes nothing about how the moon moves, yet it changes everything in how it is felt. The mystery remains, but it is no longer a hollow darkness. It is a silence filled with unseen light, a companion's secret softly shared. Thus, the far side of the moon, though hidden, is not forsaken by the sun. It shines where no earthly gaze can follow, carrying its own radiance in secret. And perhaps that is its quiet gift, to remind those who watch that mystery does not mean emptiness, that what is hidden can still be full of light. The thought settles gently, like the slow closing of a book. It rests without finality, inviting the listener to drift further, deeper into the quiet unknown. The thought of hidden light rests quietly for a moment, and from that stillness, the mind begins to wander, as if light itself invites a dream to follow. In the ancient world, where the night sky stretched unbroken and the moon hung without interruption of city lights, the unseen half was more than a mystery of orbit. It was a dwelling place for gods, spirits, and whispers of eternity. The Greeks, gazing upward with patient wonder, imagined Nyx, the goddess of night, wrapped in her veil of shadow, moving silently across the face, never revealed. For them, the hidden half was not only land unseen, but a realm of presence where the very essence of night had made its home. Nyx did not need to be explained. She was simply there, like darkness itself, eternal and unhurried. To think of her seated on the far side is to imagine that the moon's turning away is not emptiness, but reverence. The veil becomes a temple, a chamber of stillness where the goddess breathes in silence. The surface that science names rock and crater becomes, under this ancient vision, the soft cloak of a divine figure. The idea drifts lightly, not pressing for belief, but resting, as myth does a fragrance in the air, a shadow in the corner of the eye. It is gentle. It does not disturb. Far away in the imagination of the Maya, the unseen face of the moon was not merely the home of a goddess, but a door. They looked into the silver glow and felt the edge of another world. To them, the far side was a passage into dreams, a portal through which one could slip into the landscapes of sleep. Just as the moon governs tides on earth, So too it was thought to guide the tides of thought, the ebb and flow of visions that come with night. The far side, unseen and unreachable, was the threshold through which these journeys began. In this telling, every dream is a reflection of that hidden ground. Every drifting vision, every fleeting shadow behind closed eyes is imagined as a traveler passing through the far side of the moon. The hidden face becomes not only stone, but doorway, not only cratered land, but a bridge into the unmeasured space of the mind. Like water passing under a gate, the thoughts of dreamers flow through the silence of that unseen hemisphere. These myths do not argue with the science that explains synchronous rotation. They simply lay over it like a veil softening what could be stark. The far side remains what it is, but it also becomes what imagination needs it to be. To the Greeks, it is the dwelling of night. To the Maya, it is the path of dreams. Both visions move, gently wrapping the hidden in meaning rather than a measurement, and both still linger, even now hovering like faint starlight across the collective memory. When the mind hears these tales, it does not have to decide whether they are true. It only has to feel how they slow the breath, how they soften the unseen with story. The moon becomes more than a celestial neighbor. It becomes a keeper of myths, carrying with it the weightless fabric of human wonder. And that wonder, told and retold, becomes a companion as constant as the moon's glow itself. The far side, then, is not only a physical fact, but also a canvas. Upon it are painted the figures of gods, the passageways of dreams, the resting places of stories that stretch across centuries. The surface is scarred with craters, but imagination smooths those scars into patterns of presence. Science tells one kind of truth, myth tells another. Together, they create a harmony like two notes held in the same slow chord. And as these visions drift into the present, they do not fade. They remain as gentle echoes carried forward each time the moon rises. The unseen becomes a vessel holding both the radiance of the sun and the shadows of ancient thought. It is this layering that makes the moon what it is to the human spirit, both rock and reflection, both silence and story. So, the hidden side is never only hidden. It is revealed in myth, in dream, in the soft invention of imagination. It is felt as presence even when it cannot be seen as surface. And in knowing this, the listener is invited to rest with the thought that what is unseen need not be empty, that what is beyond the gaze can still be near in meaning. And from here the mind drifts on, as though following the moon itself, into another turn of shadow and light. From the gentle haze of ancient imagination, the story moves onward like a drifting tide, slipping into another current. What once lived only in myth and dream began at last to meet the quiet gaze of human eyes. When a spacecraft curved around the familiar orbit and reached the far side, the veil that had been held for so long began to lift. The moment was not loud, not sudden, but quiet, like a curtain slowly drawn aside. There, waiting in silence, was a face that had always been present, yet never revealed. It was not an intruder's discovery, but a reunion, as if the moon had simply turned its head to show what had been hidden in patience all along. The far side appeared not in brilliance, but in stillness. Rugged land stretched outward, marked by craters and shadows, softened by the glow of reflected light. It was different, yes, yet not unfamiliar. The same silver dust, the same long valleys, the same still air without wind. It was like looking into the eyes of an old companion and realizing that half the expression had always been missing. The meeting was tender, not startling. The cameras carried by the spacecraft captured what no human gaze from Earth had ever held directly. Images were sent back grainy and simple, yet rich with presence. They did not shatter myths, nor did they silence dreams. Instead, they layered another truth upon the moon's mystery, the way light layers overshadow without erasing it. The far side was revealed, yet the sense of distance remained soft and untouchable. In that unveiling, the moon did not lose its poetry. It gained another voice. The unseen half, once only imagined, now shimmered in pictures that traveled across space and touched the waiting Earth. The moment was less a revelation than a continuation, like turning a page in a book already half read. Nothing was broken. Everything simply unfolded. It is easy to imagine how the astronauts, or those who guided the mission from far below, might have felt in that still instant. Not triumph, not conquest, but quiet wonder. The kind of wonder that does not race, but lingers. The kind that notices how silence deepens when something hidden at last steps into the light. The moon, steadfast and calm, offered its far side not as a prize, but as a gift of presence. And so the familiar and the unfamiliar became one. The near side, with its patterns of light that inspired countless myths, and the far side, rugged and shadowed, joined together in the human mind. For the first time, the moon was whole, not because its mystery had ended, but because it had expanded. To see more was not to end the story, but to give it another breath. The unveiling of the far side did not erase Nyx, nor close the dream gate of the Maya. Those images rested alongside the myths, like layers of music playing together in harmony. The goddess still dwelt in the night. The dreams still passed through the hidden gate. And now the photographs added a texture of stone and silence to the same song. The moon carried both science and story, both surface and symbol, without needing to choose between them. In the stillness of that moment, the unseen became seen, yet it remained mysterious. The craters, the mountains, the valleys, they were there, but they gave no explanations. They offered only presence, only the quiet fact of being. The far side was no longer invisible, yet it was still unreachable by ordinary eyes. It remained what it had always been, a companion turning in silence, sharing light, and keeping its own rhythm beyond human reach. And so, the moment settled into memory, not as a jolt, but as a calm breath. The far side had been revealed, and yet the mystery endured, softened, deepened, carried into the stream of time. The story drifts forward still, as if the moon, having lifted its mask for an instant, now lowers it once more, leaving behind both knowledge and wonder. The unveiling of the hidden face rests in memory, and from that gentle vision, the mind drifts further, as if leaning closer to study the surface itself. The far side of the moon does not mirror the near side. What the earth knows as wide, pale plains of basalt, smooth and open like frozen seas, are absent there. Instead, the hidden face carries a harsher beauty, rough and uneven where light falls across ridges and shadows deepen inside craters. It is a land shaped by countless impacts, marked by the long passage of time, a place of scars rather than mirrors. Yet even these scars, silent and unmoving, have a still elegance of their own. The craters lie like bowls carved in stone, catching the faint light that travels from the sun. Their rims stand as delicate outlines, sharp and high, while their depths rest in shadow. Between them rise mountains, not lush with trees or rivers, but silent spires of rock waiting beneath the sky without motion. The surface feels austere, but also patient, as though it has been holding its form for ages without complaint. To look upon it is not to see violence, but to see stillness shaped into form, where the near side invites the gaze with smoother plains, the Maria dark seas that reflect light like quiet water. The far side closes itself with a rugged ground. It feels less like an open hand and more like a clenched one, less like a mirror and more like a memory. The terrain is severe but not hostile. It simply endures. It lies there in silence, carrying the marks of every encounter, as if each impact were a word etched into its story. And that story continues to be written, slowly, invisibly, beneath the gaze of stars. The roughness becomes its character. It does not need the smoothness of plains to be beautiful. It carries another kind of beauty, one that belongs to solitude. The shadows move slowly across its uneven ridges, stretching long in the low light, collapsing gently as the day turns. The rhythm is unhurried. Each mountain holds its shape, each crater its hollow, and together they create a landscape that feels more like a dream than a map. The moon's hidden face is not barren emptiness, but a canvas textured by time. And in this ruggedness, there is quiet meaning. The craters remind the mind that even silence has been touched, that even what seems untouched has been shaped by encounters. The mountains suggest that even in stillness, there can be height rise and outline. The far side in all its strangeness becomes a meditation on endurance. Nothing there grows, nothing moves. And yet in its immobility, it speaks of presence, a presence that outlasts storms, winds, and waves. For those who first saw it, the difference was striking, but not violent. It was simply another face, one less polished, one less familiar, yet no less a part of the moon's whole. The hidden side was not darkness. It was not absence. It was another form of being, a reminder that what lies unseen can still carry beauty, even if that beauty is rough and spare. The mind, in resting on this thought, drifts toward calmness rather than alarm. The rugged world is quiet. The rugged world is still. Perhaps it is this contrast that holds the fascination. The near side, with its smoother expanses, the far side, with its jagged scars. One side known by sight, the other known first by imagination, then by lens. Together, they are the same companion, showing two truths, at once the face we are given and the face that remains turned away. Both carry light. Both are part of the same turning. And so, the listener can rest in this vision, a hidden land rough and strange, marked by hollows and high ridges, but never hostile, never loud. It lies there quietly, waiting, enduring, reflecting light in silence. The far side is a reminder that not all beauty is smooth, not all mystery lies in shadow. Sometimes it lies in the roughness itself, in the scars that remain in the still shapes that wait forever under the sky. The thought lingers soft as a sigh before drifting onward to what silence itself can mean. From the vision of ridges and scars, the thought drifts deeper, not into the shapes themselves, but into the silence that wraps around them. On the far side of the moon, there is no voice from Earth, no whisper of signal or radio wave. The rock itself is not resistant, but the body of the moon stands in between, shielding that half from every call. It is as though the moon turns its shoulder, creating a space where the noise of human communication cannot reach. In that space, silence gathers. In that space, stillness blooms. Scientists call it radio silence, a region cut off from the transmissions that cover the earth and spill outward into the sky. Yet the phrase so simple can be softened, for here is not emptiness, but refuge, a haven of quiet set apart from the constant hum of voices, signals, and waves. It is like an island, ringed not by water, but by shadow, resting alone in the great sea of space, an island of quiet. This silence is not heavy. It does not press or overwhelm. Instead, it lies light and open, like a wide meadow, without wind, where nothing stirs but the slow turning of light and shadow. In such a place, the idea of listening itself changes. Without interruption, without noise, even the faintest sound of the universe could be imagined as present. Not loud, not sharp, but soft, like the sigh of distant stars. The far side is therefore both rough in form and tender in meaning. The craters and ridges may appear severe, but within them rests this hidden stillness, untouched by signals, unbroken by human reach. It is a silence that does not need to be absolute to be felt as profound, just as night is not the absence of day, but its balance. So, this quiet is not the absence of sound, but its deep pause. To picture it is to imagine standing upon the rocks, though no foot has lingered there long, and hearing nothing but the rhythm of one's own breath. No echoes, no waves, no static carried from the earth. Only the body, the stone, and the slow flood of sunlight gliding across the horizon. The silence would be steady, not frightening, but grounding, like being held inside the palm of the moon itself. Such a place suggests reverence, not because it is distant, not because it is hidden, but because it offers something rare, a pause, a stillness so complete that it becomes a mirror, not of sound, but of thought. One could imagine that even the noise of the mind would fall quieter there, as if the lack of signal could reach into the inner self and soften its restlessness. The far side becomes not only a landscape, but a state of being, an invitation to listen to the silence itself. And so, the phrase radio shadow becomes something gentler, not shadow as in fear, but shadow as in shade, like a tree offering coolness on a long day. The moon shelters its hidden face from Earth's constant voice, and in doing so creates a sanctuary in which the universe can be heard more purely, where the oldest echoes might drift undisturbed. Whether or not one listens, the silence remains. Whether or not one understands, the silence endures. This is why some imagine it as a perfect listening post, a place where instruments might one day sit waiting patiently to catch the faint murmur of distant galaxies. Yet even without such visions, the thought itself is enough. The far side holds its silence as gently as the near side holds its light. One half shows, one half conceals. Together they turn, and in their turning they balance both brightness and quiet. So, the hidden face of the moon is not only a rough world of craters and scars, it is also this island of stillness floating in the wider sea of space, an island without waves, without voices, without interruption, a place where silence itself becomes luminous, reflecting the same serenity, as the light upon stone. And as the thought of this sanctuary lingers, the mind drifts further, ready to follow the moon into yet another layer of its story. From the still island of silence, the thought drifts gently onward, and in that quiet, another image begins to rise. The soundless ringing of the moon itself. When a meteorite meets the lunar surface, the rock does not break into thunder as it might upon Earth. Instead, the impact sends vibrations through the body of the moon, moving in long, patient waves. The sound does not carry, for there is no air to bear it, yet the motion lingers deep within the stone. It is as if the entire sphere becomes an instrument struck softly and then allowed to sing in silence. The resonance continues long after the initial touch has faded. Observers have compared it to a bell, not a bell of brass or iron, but one of silver, delicate and suspended in the night. When touched, it shivers with tone, not heard by ear, but measured by subtle motion, the way light can be felt upon the skin without a word. The moon in this way becomes a bell that never falls, a bell that drifts in space, carrying a song that no listener hears, yet that exists all the same. The ringing is not fast, it is not sharp. It travels slowly, seeping into the body of the moon, moving outward, then back again, as though the stone itself is breathing. Each vibration is like an echo trapped in the hollow of a cavern, circling, returning, refusing to fade at once. The quiet body of the moon becomes a memory chamber, keeping the trace of every encounter in these long-lasting murmurs. To imagine it is to imagine a great silence filled with invisible sound. A bell swings in the void, but no ear listens. A chord is struck, but no air carries its note. And yet the motion endures, shimmering through stone, gentle, patient, endless. The idea alone can slow the breath, as if the listener were tuning into a music deeper than sound, a music written in movement itself. In the language of science, it is seismic energy rippling across the crust, through the mantle returning in waves that overlap and linger. But to the mind at rest, it is more than vibration. It is a lullaby of stone. The moon holds each impact as though it were a note, and then releases it, not quickly, but over long hours, letting the song stretch thin across time. Like wind through chimes, like water over glass, the sound is imagined, though never heard. This ringing does not disturb the serenity of the moon. It adds to it. The impacts may be sudden, but their aftermath is not violence. It is resonance. The moon does not cry out. It hums. It does not shatter. It sings. The hidden side, the near side, the whole sphere together, all respond with this slow trembling, this echo without end. It is as if the moon itself remembers through vibration what it does not speak in words. And so the image remains a silver bell hanging in the vast, dark, touched again and again across the ages, each time offering a new note to the silent song. The ringing joins the stillness, and the stillness holds the ringing until the two are one. Silence is not absence. It is resonance stretched thin. The moon suspended becomes the perfect keeper of that truth. To rest with this thought is to imagine lying beneath a bell that is too large to see, too slow to hear, but whose vibration fills the body with calm. The breath aligns with its rhythm. The mind quiets into its patience. The ringing does not demand attention. It simply exists, waiting to be felt, not as noise, but as presence, And as the thought drifts on the moon's gentle trembling, folds back into stillness, ready to carry the story toward the scars and memories etched upon its face, the thought of the moon's long resonance lingers like a fading hum, and from that vibration, the mind drifts toward the marks left behind, the places where time has written its story into stone. Every crater upon the hidden face is more than a hollow in rock. It is a memory, a quiet archive of the countless encounters the moon has endured, each one formed when a wandering body, a meteorite, or fragment of ancient stone touched the surface with sudden force. Yet what remains is not violence, but stillness. The scar does not bleed, it rests. It lies open, unchanged, a circle of shadow and light that endures across ages. From a distance, these craters appear like beads scattered upon a canvas, each rim catching sunlight, each hollow deepening into shade. Together, they weave a pattern, a map of memory etched across the lunar face. Some are wide, some are small, but all are equal in silence. The moon carries them the way a tree carries ring. Within its trunk, quiet evidence of time-passing testimony without speech. The surface does not erase its past. It keeps it visible. The far side of the moon, more rugged than the near side, bears even more of these marks. Without the smooth expanses of basalt plains, the scars remain clustered and layered, one overlapping another, like brush strokes on a canvas that has never been washed clean. To gaze upon them is to gaze upon history, without words, a history that does not move, yet speaks through its persistence. Each crater is an echo turned to stone. Each shadow is a chapter resting open forever. And when sunlight falls across them, the scars take on a strange kind of beauty. Their edges gleam faintly silver against the dark, while their depths remain hushed and hidden. They sparkle, not like jewels, but like dust caught in a beam of light, subtle and patient. From afar, the far side of the moon resembles a painting hung in the sky, a painting made not with pigment, but with memory itself. The scars become luminous. The wounds become stars upon stone. This is why they can be imagined as a constellation of remembrance. Just as the stars form patterns that humans have traced into stories, so, too, the craters form constellations of silence, outlines of events too ancient to name. They do not frighten. They do not demand attention. They wait quietly, as if content to be seen or unseen, their presence steady, regardless of the gaze. The moon, in this way, becomes not only a companion of Earth, but a keeper of memory, holding its history on the surface like a book left forever open. And though the scars seem harsh, they are softened by distance. From Earth, they blur into pale patterns. Even from closer views, their ruggedness transforms into rhythm, a pattern of repetition that soothes the eye. The surface marked again and again creates not chaos, but calm, for it is unchanging, unmoving eternally, the same each time it is seen. In its scars, the moon offers not disruption, but continuity. To rest with this thought is to realize that memory itself can be beautiful when it is steady. The moon does not hide its past, nor does it attempt to heal. It simply shows gently what has happened and carries it onward. The far side becomes a gallery of such memories, glowing faintly under sunlight, dimming gently in shadow, and returning again as the cycle repeats. It is a gallery without walls, suspended above the earth, endlessly open. And so, from afar, the moon's hidden face appears like a painting dusted with stars. Not stars of burning light, but stars of stone and silence. The image is soft, not sharp, a texture of remembrance spread wide across the silver sphere. Each crater adds to the pattern, and together they become something greater, not wounds, but the shimmer of memory itself. The thought drifts slowly like dust across a quiet beam and leads onward as though inviting the listener to imagine not only the scars, but what dreams might one day rise among them. The traces of ancient scars shimmer faintly in imagination, and from those quiet marks, the thought begins to wander, drifting not backward into what has been, but forward into what might come. There has long been a vision, soft and tentative, that one day the hidden side of the moon might hold a station, a place for listening, a sanctuary for watching the universe with unhindered gaze. The far side, shielded from Earth's constant voice, offers a silence unmatched, a perfect island of calm where instruments could be placed to hear the faintest whispers from the stars. Yet this vision, though rooted in reason, drifts through the mind, less like a plan and more like a dream that lingers patient, neither urgent nor insistent. In this dream, the rough surface of the moon becomes a foundation. The craters that once held only a shadow now cradle observatories, their structures glinting faintly under the long arc of lunar day. The still mountains serve as sentinels, and the dark sky above them becomes an open canvas for listening. One can imagine antennas rising like delicate stems of silver, or domes resting like pearls within the hollows. Nothing stirs, yet everything waits. The vision holds its breath. It is not a dream of conquest. It is not a dream of noise. It is a dream of quiet watching, of resting instruments within the silence so that they may listen more deeply. The universe, vast and unhurried, would be observed from this island of calm where no interference interrupts. The far side becomes not only a hidden face, but a listening ear turned outward, attuned to the music of distant galaxies. And yet, even this image feels more like a lullaby than a project. It soothes rather than excites. It drifts rather than demands. Perhaps it is this very distance, both in space and in imagination, that makes the thought so gentle. The base is not yet built. It may not be built for a long time, and so it remains like a star, just beyond reach, visible in the mind, glowing faintly, but untouchable. This distance turns ambition into reverie, possibility into dream. The far side continues its orbit in silence, carrying the thought with it, as if carrying a lantern hidden inside shadow. In picturing this dream, the listener is not pressed to calculate or to decide. One is only asked to drift along with the vision, to see the observatories not as machines, but as extensions of quiet itself. They are imagined as watchtowers of stillness, aligned not with urgency, but with patience. They glow faintly in thought, like fireflies resting on stone, and then they vanish, leaving behind only the lingering idea that such a place could exist. The beauty of this dream lies in its slowness. It is not hurried into being. It is not demanded. It floats through imagination, the way a cloud drifts across the sky, seen, admired, and then allowed to pass. The moon remains what it is, a silent companion, but the idea of what it might become adds another layer to its mystery. The far side, already filled with scars and silence, now holds also the gentle possibility of future presence. And in this way, the moon becomes not only memory, not only mystery, but potential. A potential that is quiet, unforced, waiting in the background of thought. It does not change the rhythm of the tides or the glow of moonlight. It does not alter the dance of orbits. It only adds a soft note to the song, the note of a dream waiting in shadow, so the listener may rest with this vision, a vision of domes and antennas, in the silence of the hidden face, a vision of instruments listening to the farthest whispers, a vision of a bass that is more like a poem than a plan. It is not here, not now. It floats untethered in imagination, and as it floats, it soothes, carrying the mind further into rest. And from this drifting dream, the thought prepares to move again toward the deeper mysteries, that the hidden side may keep secrets not of stone, but of silence itself. From the drifting thought of a future base, the mind glides further into the quiet heart of the far side, where the silence itself begins to take on the shape of a guardian. This region, shielded from the endless hum of Earth's transmissions, has long been imagined as a perfect place for listening. The moon's body stands between blocking the signals and noise that wrap the Earth, leaving the far side untouched, serene, and clean. Within this hush, instruments could stretch their senses outward, catching the faint echoes of galaxies too distant for ordinary ears. Yet even without machines, the place already feels like a listening chamber, a sanctuary of soundlessness that seems prepared to hold the oldest songs of the universe. It can be pictured as a temple, not of stone columns and carved doors, but of rock and shadow. The craters form its halls, the ridges its walls, and above it lies the dome of the darkened sky. No chants are spoken there, no footsteps echo across the floor, yet the silence itself feels sacred, as though it were built for reverence. A temple, not made by hands, but shaped by orbits and time. In its stillness, it waits as if guarding secrets not meant to be lost. The secrets, of course, are not words. They are signals, faint and patient, traveling across distances beyond measure. Radio waves drifting from the edge of the galaxy, whispers of ancient stars, echoes of beginnings. On Earth, they are drowned beneath the constant tide of noise, the chatter of machines and transmissions. But here, behind the moon's shield, they could arrive unbroken, like letters carried across oceans to a waiting shore. The far side becomes the keeper, not of myth alone, but of the universe's memory, written in invisible sound. To rest with this thought is to imagine the moon leaning its ear outward away from Earth, listening into the void. It hears not in tones we can catch, but in quiet patterns, in faint pulses in the distant breath of cosmic background. Each signal is like a faint footprint across the still air, a reminder that even silence carries story, and the moon with its shield of stone holds those stories gently, keeping them from scattering, keeping them safe until someone is ready to listen. It is easy then to see why the far side feels more like a guardian than a mere surface. It does not speak, but it protects. It does not write, but it preserves. The temple is silent, but within its silence lie the voices of countless stars folded into waves, invisible to the eye. This is not a silence of emptiness. It is a silence of holding. The listener can picture the scene as though standing within that vast chamber. No echoes return, no signals intrude, only the awareness that far beyond the darkness, waves are moving, and here they could be heard. The temple is open, yet enclosed. The temple is empty, yet filled with memory. It is a paradox, but a gentle one, a paradox that soothes instead of confuses, like the way night can feel both vast and intimate at once. And so, the far side becomes more than hidden rock. It becomes a custodian, a keeper of echoes, a place where the faintest voices of the cosmos might be caught like dust resting on a beam of light. It carries this role without effort, simply by turning in its orbit, by being what it is. The temple does not try to hold, it simply holds. The moon does not try to guard, it simply guards. The thought rests here in this vision of a silent sanctuary, an unseen temple where the universe leaves its quiet offerings. It is not a place to rush toward. It is not a place to fear. It is a place to imagine, to let the mind drift within, to feel the peace of knowing that some parts of the cosmos are always listening, even when no one speaks. And from this temple of silence, the story flows onward toward the whispers of old tales that people have long carried about, where the soul may wander when it leaves the light. From the image of a silent temple holding the universe's echoes, the thought drifts gently into the realm of story, where silence becomes not only a sanctuary for signals, but also a resting place for souls. In some traditions, it was believed that when a spirit leaves the body, it does not wander endlessly, nor vanish into nothing, but journeys instead toward the far side of the moon. That hidden hemisphere, unseen by earthly eyes, was imagined as a threshold, a destination where the soul might find peace. Not a place of punishment, not a place of fear, but a quiet haven where the departed could rest wrapped in silver light. The unseen face became, in these murmurings, less a mystery of stone and more a home for eternity. The belief carried no urgency. It was not spoken with trembling or dread. It was whispered softly, like a lullaby, passed from one generation to the next. The moon, already familiar as a companion in the sky, became also a companion beyond life, a guide for the spirit when the journey of breath was done. The far side, concealed from the world, offered a privacy for this final rest, like a hidden chamber prepared in advance. To imagine it is to see the moon not only turning in orbit, but keeping watch over those who have gone. The craters become beds of silence, the valleys cradles of shadow, the mountains gentle guardians, standing still. Light still falls there, though unseen, and in that light the soul could find warmth. It is not a dark exile, but a luminous repose. The hidden face becomes a sanctuary for what is no longer bound to earth, a place where time itself feels slower, stretched, unhurried. Such stories remind the listener that human beings have always sought comfort in the unknown. The far side of the moon was never empty. It was filled with meaning, with imagination, with the hope that what cannot be seen may still be kind. In thinking of the soul finding its way there, cultures offered a vision that soothed the fear of departure. To rest beneath the moon's quiet glow was to enter not into loss, but into another kind of night, a night eternal, yet gentle. Science may say nothing of souls or their paths, yet even science does not erase the tenderness of the tale. The far side remains hidden, shielded, untouched by earthly gaze. It is therefore natural that the mind seeking images of rest would place its faith there. The myth flows easily into the reality. What cannot be seen may yet be imagined, and what is imagined may soften the heart. The moon holds both truths without conflict. For the listener, this belief becomes not something to judge, but something to feel. It invites the mind to picture death not as an end, but as a journey toward a familiar light. The soul rises, moves gently, and settles on the far side where silence holds it tenderly. There is no fear in this picture, only stillness, only peace. The moon becomes more than stone, more than orbit. It becomes a lantern for the living and a cradle for the departed. And so the far side carries two kinds of echoes. One is the scientific echo, the faint signals of the universe caught in the sanctuary of radio silence. The other is the echo of belief, the whisper that souls may find their way there. Both are quiet, both are invisible, both make the hidden face more than it seems. The moon in turning preserves them all as if it has promised to keep what humans and stars alike have entrusted to it. The thought rests here as softly as a sigh, a story whispered, a belief imagined, a truth unseen. The far side does not answer, and it does not need to. It simply continues to turn, carrying silence, carrying memory, carrying dreams of where souls may go. And from this hushed vision, the mind moves onward, prepared to follow the moon into its next unfolding, a rhythm slower still, where scars silence and stories blend into one continuous breath. From the whispered belief of souls, finding rest upon the hidden face, the thought moves slowly into the marks left behind, as if memory itself wished to speak through stone. The surface of the moon, both near and far, carries countless craters, each one carved by the meeting of stone. With stone, each one a reminder of encounters that came and stayed. These impacts, sudden in their making, became patient in their keeping, leaving hollows that remain long after the force that shaped them has gone. Unlike Earth, with its waters that flow and winds that erase, the moon has no such veil to soften its past. What arrives upon its face is kept. What touches it is remembered. So, the craters endure unchanging, scattered across plains and ridges, like letters upon a page. They are not neat nor ordered yet. Together, they compose something vast, something that can be read like a chronicle written without ink. The moon holds this book of stone open, always facing the gaze of space, offering its scars not as wounds, but as words. Each hollow is a line, each ridge is a mark, and together they are history itself, lying quietly in the dust of ages. This book is silent. It has no cover, no parchment, no voice, and yet it speaks, though it speaks in stillness. To gaze upon it is to listen not with ears, but with the mind to the long passage of time, recorded without haste. Each crater rests as a memory, a point where time paused and left its sign. None have been erased. None have been forgotten. The thought of this book invites calm, for it shows that not all stories must be told in words or written in ink. Some can be carved into the very skin of a world to last as long as the world itself. The moon carries these traces not with burden, but with quiet acceptance, as though time itself entrusted its memories to the stone. In this way, the craters are not scars of pain, but of endurance. They are the way the moon remembers. From afar, the pattern of these marks glimmers faintly. Sunlight moves across them, catching edges, deepening shadows, bringing out shapes that shift and soften as the light changes. The book is not static. It is read differently with every turn of the day, with every angle of light. The same crater may seem sharp in one moment, soft in another, hidden in darkness, and then revealed again. The text of this chronicle is always open, but always changing, like the surface of water rippling beneath the sky. And though the moon holds countless craters, none compete with one another. Each belongs, each adds to the whole. Together, they form a harmony, a gentle accumulation of memory that spans beyond human measure. To the mind, it becomes a reminder that time itself is vast, that the passage of ages is not quick, but unhurried, that endurance is its own kind of beauty. The moon is not a place of erasure, but of preservation. Its book of stone is never closed. This sense of permanence brings with it a strange kind of peace, for in looking at these marks, one feels the slow rhythm of existence, the patience of cycles that continue whether or not they are seen. The moon does not hurry to forget, it simply holds. It offers itself as an archive, a memory palace beneath the sky, where nothing is lost and nothing is rushed. To imagine it is to see a library without walls, each crater, a volume, each plane, a page. The dust is the ink, the sunlight, the lamp, the silence, the binding that holds it together. No hand turns these pages. They turn themselves with the slow orbit of the moon, with the endless flow of light and shadow across its face. The chronicle remains unbroken, written in the only language time needs presence. And so, the moon becomes not only a companion in orbit, not only a keeper of tides, but also a librarian of the universe, holding the record of impacts and ages with unshaken calm. Its scars are not flaws. They are its script. They are the story it tells without speaking. The thought rests here in the awareness that every hollow, every ridge is a note in a song that never ends. The moon keeps this music of memory, open a book of stone beneath the stars. And from this book, the mind drifts on toward the deeper stillness that silence itself holds. From the image of scars kept as a chronicle, the thought drifts inward away from marks and memory toward the vast stillness that surrounds them all. On the moon, there is no wind to move the dust, no air to carry sound, no breeze to stir the quiet plains. The silence is not partial, but complete, extending across every crater, every ridge, every valley. When a rock falls, the vibration lingers, but no echo follows. When the light moves, it spreads without murmur. This is silence, not as absence, but as atmosphere, filling the whole sphere with a calm that does not break. To step into such silence would be to step into a meditation hall, vast beyond measure. The ground is the floor, the sky is the ceiling. The walls are made not of stone, but of distance. Within that hall, time seems slower, stretched thin across the space, like a long breath held steady. No sound marks its passage, no rustle signals its change. Only the shifting of light across the land reminds the watcher that time continues at all. This stillness is not heavy. It does not weigh upon the listener, nor does it close in with pressure. Instead, it opens outward, spacious quiet that allows thought to loosen and drift. In the absence of sound, the inner voice softens. The mind itself grows hushed as though influenced by the calm it inhabits. Silence outside becomes silence within, and the two mirror each other like twin faces of a single reflection. Science would describe this simply: no air, no medium, no vibration to carry waves. Yet such simplicity hides the depth of the experience, for the silence of the moon is not just physical, it is also emotional, even spiritual. It feels as though the entire sphere has been wrapped in stillness, cradled within the arms of space. preserved in an eternal pause. This pause is not emptiness, but presence. Presence without sound, presence without interruption. The moon circling Earth becomes both a companion in orbit and a teacher of quiet. It shows that silence need not be feared, that silence can be complete and still carry warmth. When sunlight spills across the surface, the light glows without noise. When darkness falls, the shadows deepen without whisper. Every change happens without sound, and in this way, the moon teaches a slower rhythm, one that does not demand, one that does not hurry. To rest with this thought is to picture sitting within that vast meditation hall. The craters form seats, the mountains rise like statues, the valleys stretch like corridors. Nothing stirs, and yet everything waits. The silence becomes a guide, reminding the listener that calm is not something to be reached, but something always present, revealed when the noise is set aside. The moon, in its quiet turning, carries this teaching without speech, and so the far side, already hidden from Earth's gaze, feels doubly secluded, not only unseen but unheard. It becomes the purest chamber of stillness imaginable, a sanctuary untouched by both light and sound from human life. Within this chamber, even thought slows, as if bowing to the depth of the quiet. The listener does not need to fill, it does not need to break it. It is enough to let it be. The vision of this silence lingers long after it is imagined. It carries into the body, into the breath, into the gentle pace of the heart. The quiet of the moon becomes the quiet of the self, and in that union, peace settles in, soft as dust, steady as orbit, endless as the cycles of shadow and light. And from this immense stillness, the thought is ready to follow once more toward the light that touches even the hidden side, turning silence into a slow unfolding of day and night. From the chamber of stillness, the thought drifts outward, where silence is not alone, but touched by light. Even on the hidden side of the moon, the sun eventually arrives. Its rays fall in cycles, not quick, not hurried, but stretched into long spans, like a slow breath exhaled and inhaled across the surface. Darkness does not stay forever. Light does not remain without pause. They exchange places in an endless rhythm, neither conquering nor defeated, only passing through one another with patience. This cycle, known simply as day and night, carries a different weight here than on Earth. On the far side, the changes are drawn out, as if the sky itself wishes to linger in each state a little longer. When the light comes, it pours across mountains and craters, touching the rough edges with a soft brightness. When it fades, shadows return deep and quiet, filling the same valleys once warmed. Nothing resists, nothing complains. The surface accepts both the bright and the dark with the same calm surrender. In this way, the far side of the moon becomes a canvas painted by time. Each brushstroke is light, each erasure is shadow, and together they weave a pattern that repeats without haste. The craters gleam like bowls of silver during the sunlit hours. Then, as the glow recedes, they darken into pools of quiet ink. To watch this unfolding would be like listening to music so slow that every note lasts an eternity, and yet the melody continues, never broken, never rushed. The idea of a dark side is softened here, for though it hides from Earth, it is not abandoned by the sun. The far side is not truly eternal night, but a place where day takes its time to arrive, where the dawn is stretched thin and patient, where dusk is not abrupt, but lingers like twilight. remembered in a dream. In that slowness lies its gift, a rhythm steady enough to soothe the mind, to remind the heart that not all cycles must be fast. Light, when it comes, does not rush in as a flood. It slides, it glides, it spreads in silence. It touches mountain peaks first, then drapes itself down the slopes, before at last reaching the deeper basins. The shadows retreat with grace, not in fear but in courtesy, yielding their space, so the glow may rest upon the ground. Later, when the time comes, again the darkness returns, in the same gentle manner, layering itself across the land, like a soft blanket spread for sleep. To imagine, this is to imagine breathing with the moon. Each arrival of light is an inhale. Each return of shadow is an exhale. Together, they create a rhythm as natural as the beating of a heart, as ancient as the orbit itself. This rhythm does not disturb. It does not demand. It simply continues, a reminder that change can be peaceful, that opposites need not collide, but can flow through each other, like water through sand. The silence of the moon gives this dance a special clarity. On Earth, light and shadow arrive with noise, accompanied by winds' voices and the hum of life. Here there is only stillness, and into that stillness, the sun pours its presence. The light is not brighter, but it feels more complete. The darkness is not darker, but it feels more serene. In the absence of other sounds, the alternation becomes almost audible, as if the world itself were breathing softly through cycles of illumination and rest. This picture settles quietly in the mind. It reminds one that even hidden places are not forgotten, that even silence receives the touch of warmth, that every shadow is destined to yield to light again. And so, the far side of the moon, so often imagined as a place of eternal darkness, becomes instead a place of balance, where shadow and glow keep each other company, flowing slowly, endlessly, side by side. And as this thought drifts to rest, the journey can move onward toward the image of craters that hold this light and shadow as memory, carrying their scars like shining stories written across the stone. From the flowing dance of light and shadow, the thought drifts naturally toward companionship, for no cycle exists alone. The earth and the moon move together, bound in a long embrace that has lasted beyond memory. One turned, the other follows their steps, arranged so carefully that the same face always gazes outward, while the hidden side remains unseen. It is not a trick nor a refusal, but a quiet agreement between two travelers who share the same path. Their bond is not hurried, not forced. It is simply there, steady as a heartbeat. The orbit they share is a circle of patience. Earth spins with life upon its surface. Oceans rising and falling, clouds drifting in the shifting shapes. The moon moves around it slower, gentler, as if keeping watch. Together, they form a rhythm larger than a day, or a night larger than the fleeting seasons. To imagine them is to imagine two companions walking side by side, one carrying the glow of life, the other carrying silence, both leaning into each other without ever letting go. From Earth, the moon appears as a gentle presence in the sky, waxing and waning, but always familiar. From the moon, Earth shines brighter than any star, a sphere of oceans and land wrapped in drifting white. Each sees the other in ways we cannot from here, as if exchanging glances across a distance that is not measured by steps but by a thread of gravity. That invisible thread is strong enough to bind them, yet tender enough to let them dance freely. This bond explains why one half of the moon is always turned toward Earth. The hidden face is not forgotten, only concealed like a secret shared between friends. Earth knows the near side well, with its plains and seas of stone. The far side it knows less, and yet still feels its pull, still senses its weight. The two halves, near and far, are part of the same body held in orbit by the same partner. Together, they circle the sun as if hand in hand, part of a dance that never ends. To picture this is to soften the idea of distance. The space between Earth and Moon may seem vast, but their connection is not broken by it. Instead, the space becomes the fabric of their union, stretched but never torn. The tides of Earth rise in response to the Moon's pull. The Moon itself stays steady because of Earth's embrace. They are not master and servant, not ruler and ruled, but companions who lean toward each other in ways subtle and enduring. Their story is one of balance. Earth carries life, sound, and movement. The Moon carries silence, stillness, and reflection. One glows with oceans, the other with stone. Yet both together create a harmony, a duality that feels whole. Like day and night, they need each other to remain complete. Neither takes the other away, neither interrupts. They move in concert, and their song is patience. In this companionship, there is also a sense of timelessness. They have circled together for longer than memory, and they will continue long after memory fades. The idea alone carries a softness, a reassurance that not all things must end quickly, that some bonds stretch calmly into the distance. The image of Earth and Moon, revolving in quiet agreement, can rest gently in the mind, a reminder that constancy is its own kind of beauty. This vision soothes like a lullaby. It suggests that companionship need not be loud to be strong, need not be hurried to be true. Even when one face is hidden, the connection remains. Even when distance stretches between, the pull is still felt. Earth and Moon, two companions in an endless orbit, mirror the truth that closeness can exist without words, and unity can thrive in silence. And as this thought settles, it leads naturally into the memory of what these companions carry upon their surfaces: the scars of time, the silence of space, and the quiet light that paints their paths. From the image of companions bound in silence, the story drifts into something older, something whispered by ancient voices. There is a legend told in fragments across cultures that Earth and Moon were once lovers. They were close, inseparable, sharing the same sky and the same breath. But some unseen hand, whether of gods or of destiny, separated them. Since then, they have circled each other endlessly, bound by longing, yet never allowed to touch. It is not a tale of sorrow, but of endurance, a quiet love stretched across the fabric of the night. In this telling, the orbit is no longer only a path of physics. It becomes a dance of yearning. Earth turns, carrying oceans, forests, and clouds like flowing robes. The Moon follows, pale and still, as if keeping vigil. They cannot cross the space between them, yet neither can they turn away. Each glance across the void is steady, each return assured. Like two souls held apart by glass, they watch and wait, and the waiting itself becomes their bond. The hidden face of the Moon takes on a softer meaning here. It is the side Earth can never see, the part of a beloved that remains secret, untouched. yet it is still part of the same being, still tied by gravity's invisible thread. In this way, the story suggests that love is not always about closeness. Sometimes it is about presence, about circling without breaking away. Even distance, when constant, can be a kind of embrace. Such legends turn the silence of space into something almost human. The absence of voices between Earth and Moon is not emptiness, but a hush, the hush of two who need no words. The pull of tides is not a calculation, but a reaching hand felt across the water. The glow of moonlight is not just reflected sunlight, but the gaze of a companion who cannot speak, but can still shine. The whole cycle becomes a metaphor for a connection deeper than touch. When the moon waxes, Earth sees more of her partner's face. When it wanes, less. Yet the cycle never fails, never breaks. The phases resemble the moods of a conversation, sometimes bright and open, sometimes soft and veiled, always returning, always familiar. It is the rhythm of love restrained by space, yet unshaken by time. To watch it is to be reminded that even separation can form a pattern of comfort. The myth imagines the two as exiled lovers, but not tragic ones. Their exile is serene. They are not torn by storms of grief, but held in a calm, eternal orbit. To human eyes, that stillness feels heavy, but within the story, it becomes beautiful. To be kept apart and yet never released is to know a devotion so steady it does not fade. The orbit itself is the vow. The silence is the song. Perhaps this is why people across ages have looked up and felt something tender, something beyond science. The moon is not only a stone sphere. Earth is not only a world of life. Together, they are a pair written into story and memory, as lovers who cannot meet, yet never part. And when the night is quiet, when shadows grow long, the heart senses their longing, and the legend breathes again. The image softens the mind. It turns orbital mechanics into poetry, turning numbers into whispers and equations into glances. It does not erase the truth of science, but layers it with meaning, giving comfort to those who lie awake under the moonlight. To think of Earth and Moon this way is to drift into a slower rhythm, to feel gravity not as a pull, but as a thread of affection, invisible yet undeniable. And so the tale rests like a gentle curtain falling, Earth and Moon forever circling, forever near and forever apart, remind us of a truth the universe often holds, that closeness can exist without touch, that love can endure in silence. It is not an end, nor a tragedy. It is simply a story moving as steadily as the orbit itself. From the memory of whispered legends, the story shifts toward the quiet rhythm of motion, a rhythm that has never ceased. The moon circles the earth in silence again and again without faltering. It does not hurry. It does not pause. Its path is steady, drawn like a soft line in the sky that has been traced countless times. To watch it is to see the patience of time itself, a slow embrace that it never loosens. The orbit is not a road with a beginning, nor a journey that seeks an end. It is a circle whole and unbroken, like the calm breath of the night. Every turn is the same, and yet every turn feels new. The moon rises, it sets, it returns, and it never forgets its way. In that gentle repetition lies comfort, as though the heavens are reminding those who gaze upward that constancy can be as beautiful as change. The cycle is not a trap, but a lullaby one that plays endlessly without losing its quiet charm. The endless return soothes, like waves that always reach the shore, like seasons that drift and return without fail. Orbit is the word given by science, yet in its stillness, it feels less like mechanics and more like a dance. The Earth leads the Moon, follows both tethered by gravity, that invisible thread of connection. Gravity sounds cold, like a law of motion, but here it feels like the hand of an unseen companion, holding the two together in a bond that neither distance nor silence can break. To imagine it this way is to soften the sharpness of knowledge into the gentleness of presence. The circle has no edge, no place to stop. It is neither past nor future, but always now. This is why the orbit comforts the restless mind. It does not demand progress. It does not rush toward a conclusion. It simply is. And in that simplicity, there is peace. One can lie beneath the sky and let the thought of the moon's return be enough a reminder that some things remain steady even when all else shifts. In the still night, the orbit becomes almost like breathing. The Earth turns, the moon moves with it, and together they inhale and exhale through time. The motion is unseen, but deeply felt, like a heartbeat that continues quietly without needing to be noticed. The mind, listening to this hidden rhythm, begins to soften, to sink into the same cadence. Slowly, steadily, thought itself starts to follow the circle. To imagine such a journey is to imagine walking along a path that never ends. There are no crossroads, no choices that must be made, only the smooth curve of return each step leading back to the place from which it began. It is not monotony, but serenity. For in the endless circle, there is no pressure to reach anywhere, no demand to finish. The journey itself is the resting place. And yet, within that constancy, there is also mystery. For though the moon repeats its path, it never looks exactly the same. Clouds drift shadows, change, the glow shifts from bright to dim, and then back again. The cycle reveals a truth, both scientific and poetic, that repetition is never perfect sameness. Even within the circle, there are variations, soft differences that make each moment unique, like the gentle changes in a lullaby sung each night. Thus, the orbit becomes a teacher without words. It shows that constancy and change are not opposites, but companions. The circle is unbroken, yet within it flows a quiet river of difference. To watch is to learn that one can remain steady while still moving, that stillness itself can carry motion, and that the endless path can be both ancient and new in every passing. The mind held in this thought drifts toward calm. It imagines the moon gliding softly around the earth, never falling away, never rushing closer, only circling. The circle becomes not just a path in space, but a cradle for the heart, rocking it gently without end. The night deepens, the breath slows, and the steady orbit hums like a low, eternal chant. And so, the journey continues, unchanged yet alive, unbroken, yet full of subtle motion. The moon circles, the earth receives, and together they write the same line across the dark sky, night after night. It is not a story of beginnings and endings, but of presence, a presence that soothes, that steadies, that lulls the watcher into rest. The thought of an endless orbit drifts naturally toward the mystery of halves, toward what is seen and what is concealed. The moon turns in such a way that one face is always offered steady and unwavering, while the other remains hidden, even as cameras have captured the far side. Even as spacecraft have traced its rugged outline, the silence of that hidden hemisphere has never faded. It is a silence that lingers not because of ignorance, but because of the nature of mystery itself. For there are truths that do not ask to be solved, only to be held in stillness. The unseen becomes less about knowledge and more about imagination, as though the darkness were a canvas left for dreams. This hidden face has often been called the dark side, though it is not truly dark. Sunlight touches it as faithfully as it does the face turned toward earth, yet its separation from human eyes has given it a different weight. The word dark here is not about the absence of light, but about the quiet absence of direct familiarity. It is a darkness that does not frighten, but invites. Like a locked garden, glowing faintly behind an unreachable gate, it stirs the mind without demanding entry. The human heart has always been drawn to what it cannot fully see. The far side of the moon became a mirror for that longing. Even when photographs revealed mountains and craters, the mystery did not end, for the image alone cannot replace the hush that distance creates. A photograph can be studied, explained, archived, yet the silence of something beyond our reach cannot be taken away. It remains soft and intact, like a whisper that continues even after the words are known. In this way, the hidden half is not only a physical region of rock and shadow, but also a symbol of what remains unspoken in the universe. It is the reminder that knowing does not erase mystery. Even when light falls upon every ridge, imagination still finds shadows to wander through. The unknown does not vanish with discovery. It simply changes its form, moving deeper, settling into the silence where the mind can drift. To picture this half is to imagine the moon holding a secret, not in defiance, but in serenity. The hidden face is not withheld out of hostility, but rather cradled, as if the moon itself understands the value of quiet. Some secrets are not meant to disturb, they are meant to soothe. They are the pauses between words, the stillness between breaths, and the far side of the moon has always carried that role, the role of keeping silence alive in the midst of motion. So the imagination is allowed to wander there, not to solve, but to drift. One might imagine valleys stretching beneath eternal twilight, or craters filled with silver dust untouched by any eye. One might dream of shadows that are not cold, but gentle like veils of velvet drawn softly across the sky. The hidden side does not ask for stories, but it accepts them. It receives every myth, every legend, every quiet projection of longing, and it holds them without reply. The balance is delicate. One face revealed, one face concealed. The symmetry itself feels like part of the lullaby, reminding the restless mind that not everything must be known at once. The seen and the unseen can coexist side by side in perfect companionship, just as night and day trade places, just as tides rise and fall, so too do knowing and unknowing flow in a rhythm that asks for no conclusion. And so, the half that hides becomes more than absence. It becomes presence of another kind, a silence that deepens rather than empties. It gives weight to the circle, like a pause that makes music whole. To think of it is not to feel lack, but to feel the richness of what remains beyond reach. The far side will always exist, turning gently, remaining invisible to earth, yet touched by the same sunlight. Its silence will always be part of the moon's story, a chapter that no voice can narrate completely. And in that silence, imagination continues to breathe, drifting quietly through the dark that is not dark the hidden that is not lost. The hidden face of the moon fades gently into another thought, one that lingers not in silence alone, but in rhythm. For everything that exists between earth and moon is bound to a pulse, a slow movement that does not end. The tides rise and fall under the pull of lunar gravity, as if the oceans themselves were breathing with the moon. The shimmering waters lean towards it, then retreat again and again in a cycle as old as memory. Each wave becomes part of the dialogue between sky and sea, a dialogue spoken not in words, but in a steady inhaling and exhaling. It is a breath so vast that it belongs not to one shore, but to the whole planet. Light, too, becomes part of this rhythm. Sunlight falls across the moon, reflecting softly toward Earth in pale silver arcs, then slipping away into shadow. The glow of the moon waxes and wanes, swelling and shrinking in a measured pace. It is the rhythm of phases, each curve and crescent part of a long repeating song. The changes are quiet. They arrive without rush, without surprise, a reminder that time itself prefers the shape of cycles over the sharpness of lines. Darkness joins this movement as well. The shadow lengthens over the lunar surface, then recedes, and the sky itself responds with constellations appearing and fading. Night is not the absence of day, but the complement that keeps balance alive. In the presence of the moon, this exchange of light and shadow feels like a dance, not hurried, not loud, but graceful, as if eternity has chosen to move slowly. The alternation of brightness and dimness is not abrupt, but like a tide of light itself, flowing and returning in silence. Earth and moon do not merely orbit each other, they walk together within this rhythm. The orbit is a path circular and ceaseless, where neither hurries nor lags behind. They are companions bound by gravity, yet also by harmony, as if the universe had composed a duet just for them. In this companionship, both worlds carry their own role, yet their steps are always in time. The earth spins, the moon turns, and together they create a tempo that echoes across oceans, skies, and shadows. The rhythm stretches farther than the eyes can follow, from the slow turning of the Earth's axis to the measured orbit of the moon. The cycles fold into one another like layers of a lullaby. Tides, phases, nights, and days, all are threads in a single fabric woven into the background of existence. To sense this is to realize that life itself rests on rhythm, that even the beating of the human heart is a reflection of cosmic breath. The pulse of blood, the flow of waves, the orbit of worlds, all belong to one grand cadence. This cadence does not need to be counted. It does not belong to minutes or hours, but to the deeper time that the universe breathes. It asks for no urgency, no conclusion. Instead, it invites stillness, the comfort of knowing that cycles continue whether or not they are measured. The moon will keep circling. The tides will keep moving. The shadows will keep shifting. Nothing is hurried. Nothing is late. Everything flows. And so the listener may rest within this awareness not as an observer apart, but as a participant inside the rhythm. For even the act of breathing slow and gentle becomes another echo of this vast pattern. Inhale with the rising tide. Exhale with the falling wave. Let the breath align with the moon's own pull, with the orbits turning, with the darkness folding into light. The body joins the dance unconsciously, yet surely, because it too belongs to this infinite rhythm. The moon has always been there, reminding the earth of this shared motion. Its pull shapes the seas, its light softens the nights, its hidden face keeps imagination awake. But in the end, what it gives most deeply is rhythm, a rhythm so broad it cannot be broken, so quiet it can lull even thought into rest. The vast rhythm of earth and moon flows gently onward, and in its quiet path, there comes the moment of night when light softens and shadows deepen. It is in this time that the moon offers not only a presence in the sky, but a gift of calm that spreads across the world below. Its silver glow falls over fields and rivers, slipping across the contours of mountains and rooftops. The light does not burn, it does not command attention. It spreads like a veil, thin and tender, as though the earth were being covered by a luminous blanket. The countryside, the forests, the waters all receive this touch, and in that receiving they grow still. Even the wind seems to hush, as if pausing to listen. On the plains, grasses lean softly under the pale glow, no longer stirred by heat or motion, but resting in their own silence. Along the banks of rivers, the surface of water gleams in trembling silver, a shimmer that quivers like the breath of someone falling asleep. The mountains, too, seem softened, their edges blurred by the light, until they resemble shadows of themselves, reclining into the night. All of it together forms a picture of rest, as though the earth were sighing after a long day. The presence of the moon is gentle, yet it carries the authority of rhythm. Just as tides respond to its pull, life too bends toward its quieting influence. Creatures withdraw into their shelters, guided by instinct, but also by the slow dimming of brightness. Birds fold wings, rivers slow leaves close, and even the human body finds its own cycles aligning with this light. The body feels the hush. The mind begins to loosen. In the stillness, the ordinary pulse of life becomes softer, drawn into harmony with the lunar glow. It is not only the world of living things that changes under this light. The very air seems transformed, washed clean of noise, filled instead with a spaciousness that makes each sound faint and distant. Crickets sing like whispers. The rustle of branches is no louder than a breath. Beneath the silver canopy, sound loses weight, and silence becomes the greater presence. It is a silence that does not feel empty, but full of the memory of light, of tides of cycles, turning without effort. The moonlight does not force this quiet. It allows it, as though opening a space where the world may rest. In this space, thought itself grows slower. The sharp edges of memory blur, the urgency of the day fades. What remains is a rhythm of breathing, a rhythm that joins with the rise and fall of shadow, with the glow that lingers on stone and water. Breathing becomes easier, softer, as if the lungs too have been invited into the night's calm. Even the unseen parts of the earth, forests far from eyes, deserts empty of voices, oceans stretching endlessly, all lie under this same silver shroud. The moon reaches them all with impartial stillness, binding them together in its pale embrace. In this way, the entire planet is gathered beneath a single, quieting presence. One light shared by all, reminding that night is not emptiness, but a gentleness spread wide. There is a sense here of the eternal, a continuity that does not end with one evening, but folds into the next, again and again. Each night the light returns, flowing like a tide across valleys and peaks, repeating itself, yet never seeming tired. This constancy becomes a lullaby of its own, the certainty that rest will always return, that the cycle of quiet will never fail. It is a rhythm older than memory, and to feel it is to feel safe in its embrace. And so, the world drifts softly into rest, not abruptly, but in layers, sound diminishing, breath slowing, light falling into shadow. It is a journey downward into stillness, a descent that is gentle, certain, and unhurried. The moon, silent and patient, watches this passage, its glow like a hand laid gently upon the earth. The night continues steady as the orbit that carries it, steady as the cycles that shape it. Beneath the silver blanket, life rests, earth breathes, and silence deepens. And in this deepening, the listener too may find release, a place where the body can surrender, the mind can drift, and the spirit can join the earth in its quiet sleep under the moon. And from the silver glow of open plains and quiet rivers, the path drifts inward toward the part of the moon once hidden in fear, but now softened into silence. The far side is not a place of menace, but a doorway, a passage where light and shadow merge, leading gently into the space of dreams. Its surface, rough and wordless, carries no threat. Instead, it holds a stillness that seems to open like a room prepared for rest. The imagination steps quietly inside and finds not emptiness, but a calm that deepens with each breath. Here the moon does not command, it whispers. Its voice is not sound, but presence, a reminder carried through silence, that the cycles will continue, that the universe keeps turning slow and certain. A quiet message. Rest is safe, for nothing has broken the rhythm. The darkness folds like a blanket. The light drifts into shadow, and all of it together forms a single lullaby. The body softens, the mind releases, and in that surrender, the hidden face speaks without words, inviting everything it touches to let go, to fall into sleep. While above, unseen but eternal, the universe still turns.